what you feel about things. Think about it. You just said it. A situation happens. We've had different feeling reactions or tied different beliefs to it based on where we were that day. We get to choose how we want to define something. And we can set ourselves up as the victim or the victor, whichever way we want to go. It's up to us to decide. Dana replied back, this is hysterical. She says, I'm going to go buy a gerbil so I never forget this. So you obviously touched somebody there, Michael.
Yeah, well, I speak about all this in my book.
Tell us more about that. When's it coming out?
It's coming out later this year. So probably the end of the summer.
Okay.
But you can sign up on my website, and we'll give you updates as to when it's coming out.
When it comes out, let me know. We'll have you back on so you can tell
That's
people
great.
more in depth. You can get into
It's called Chasing the High because that's really what I've done my whole life. Even outside of gambling, right? It was about, when I stopped gambling, I basically ran 4 marathons in 5 years. I started running a lot. Yeah, that's what I started doing. So, I still had addiction issues, obviously, but I transferred them to a positive activity.
Yeah.
So I was raising money for leukemia lymphoma, and I ran 4 marathons in 5 years. Unfortunately, I had back surgery, so I hung up my marathon running days. But that just led into a lot of fundraising. So I was nominated for about 2 years ago. I was nominated for Man of the Year, Woman of the Year for Leukemia Lymphoma Society's Utah chapter, which
really?
is a 10-week. It was a 10-week fundraising blitz. And you competed with like 8 other people about how much you could raise for them in a 10-week span.
Wow.
And it was intense. I mean, I was throwing events all over the place because, I want to win regardless of what I do. So I wanted to win.
Yeah. You're a gambler, Michael. Imagine that.
Anything in life,
Yeah.
Any addiction, not even a gambler. Sure. Because for gambling, ironically, you say that, but in gambling, it wasn't about winning or losing.
No, it's a different process, isn't it?
It was about the high.
Yeah.
It was just about the feeling I got, and that high, I wanted to fill it as much as possible.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then I ended up raising $75,000 in 10 weeks for leukemia lymphoma. And although I didn't win, I was very proud of that. My team helped me out. And we were able to really make an impact. And that's what it's about for me these days. It's about making an impact, like learn from the mistakes I've made my whole life. Because you don't need to go through that. If you have that perspective, and like you said, we're not taught these things. We're not taught that, hey, we can react any way we want to react to a situation.
That's it's funny you bring that up because I was just in my head of, what would you like to see taught? What would you like to see changed in society? Because you said we don't have to live this way, but in my experience, we aren't taught how to live the right way. What do you think? What are 1, 2, 3 things you'd like to see shifted in society so that people could live in, as you call it, flow or not live that way?
I think a big one would be teaching emotional intelligence.
Yeah, amen.
Right?
Amen.
And teaching what that's about and really getting down to a granular level so that people, understand these things.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's taught these days in school or not. I don't think it is, but I think that is a key factor, that you are in control of your emotions. A lot can depend on, what type of house you were brought up in, how your relationship with your parents and all that stuff, which I never believed either. I used to think, oh, that's all BS, but, when I started talking about it recently with some people, I recognized that, no, I have issues in these areas because they were void in me growing up. Like I just wasn't exposed to it. Some of my friends were. So they're more advanced in those areas than I am. But, I think from being what we could incorporate in schools is conversations like that.
Yeah.
Because, I think what certain, education takes for granted is that we're going to learn certain things growing up in our house.
Yeah.
But that's everybody has a different experience. Some are like have been completely in a terrible household, right?
Yeah.
Some have had one parent, single parents. I didn't. I had two parents. I grew up in I mean, they've been married 40 something years,
Yeah.
and my dad had a business and it was successful. So I grew up in a rather healthy place in terms of financially and everything. We were comfortable. We weren't rich, but we weren't poor. We were comfortable. But there were definitely things lacking there, like that emotional. But there's a lot of yelling in my house. A lot of
Well, who taught them how to be parents? Nobody.
Oh, exactly.
That's, I mean, the first two you brought up, emotions and parenting. The third one I always add is relationships. We aren't taught a single thing about those, yet we all think we're a great parent. Well, everything else in life, we take a class, we have to get certification, whatever, but those, nothing. And they drive everything we do, and we have no education, nothing, and we get defensive at the mere mentioning that we might need to look at that. To me, that's the downfall, is we're not bad, we just don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it just happens in all different areas of life. I had a conversation with my parents the other day, and I'm recently comfortable talking to them about some of this stuff because I'm coming out with it, and I'm going to be talking about it, so I figured I should give them a heads up. But one of the things is like that I told them is that, hey, do you realize that growing up, there was no intimacy in our house? Like, I really didn't discover intimacy till recently. You guys never kissed, you barely held hands, but I know you love each other. You've been married 40 something years, and they don't even identify with it, right? Because they're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
We love each other. I'm like, that's different than intimacy.
Yeah.
Right? These things are different, right?
Yeah.
My best friend had parents growing up that like would always kiss each other, hold each other's hands, and just little things like that growing up when you see it. I was always like, well, does his parents love each other more than my parents do?
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand. What's that all about, right?
Yeah.
So you don't learn those things, and nobody teaches those things.
No.
So I think those are important, and it all comes back to emotional intelligence and being able to like identify these different things.
Yeah. What is healthy intimacy? We don't know. And so even like your parents, you just perfect example. They say, what do you mean? Because they've never heard of anything different.
Right.
No one showed them either. So it makes no sense to them. And that, I think, is criminal. That we've all grown up this way without this information,
Right.
Again, none of us are
around. The information wasn't around
Yeah.
years ago. It wasn't discussed.
Yeah.
So now it is. Now it's being discussed, but it's, in the country we live in right now, with so much divisiveness and everything, it's certainly needed as much and as much as possible. Right?
And I personally feel that divisiveness is a direct result of not dealing with these things. What you're seeing in divisiveness is kids who were raised codependently and enmeshed. Their parents took care of things for them. They don't know how to cope emotionally with anything that's different from what their belief is. And so they have to control you and say, look, you have to be different so I feel safe. They haven't been taught boundaries or any of this information. And so what you're seeing is, I'm an equal opportunity denial confronter. Republican, Democrat, both sides do it. They just do it from polar opposite scales. They're doing the exact same thing. They just operate it in different ways. Do they know that? No, because they aren't taught how any of this works. And to me, you'd see that divisiveness leave if we had the right information.
Yeah, and I don't think it has to do anything with politics, as you were saying. I think it's people, because there's so many people who aren't either party.
Yeah.
And it's just people and how they react to things. Yeah. And they usually react to things based on how the people around them when they were growing up reacted to things. And,
exactly.
I used to yell at people at work because my father used to yell at people at his work. Yeah. That's what I learned working with him growing up. So that's what I did because that's all I knew. And until I started exploring, growth really and understanding and perspective and started incorporating different tools and stopped as much as I could
Yeah.
You know, we're all working on ourselves all the time, but stopped as much as I could from making emotional decisions and having emotional reactions.
Yeah.
And that's what you get with this politics stuff. It's people react emotionally, right? Not rationally. So, but I did that at work. Like, I would have an answer when an employee was what I felt giving me an excuse about something, right?
Yeah.
I would be ready to start answering them halfway into what they were saying.
Yeah.
And like not even listen to really what they were saying. And, you know, obviously you have to be able to listen.
Yeah.
You have to listen to people. We have to be able to listen to each other.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing that I've learned. It's so basic.
Yeah.
But it's obviously such a big thing, and you have to remind yourself and you have to practice it. And
we need to know how to do it.
yeah.
That to me is the biggest thing.
It's got to be about conversation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Conversation. And look, if you lead with empathy, then you lead from the right place in all of these areas. And, you know, then you can, then you can really connect on something and learn from each other. And that's what it's all about.
All right, Michael, we need to wrap up. And I always like to end my show with this one question of, what was the best day of your life?
The best day of my life was when I was born on October 29th.
Amen.
I'm not going to say the year.
Yeah.
I would say that's the best day of my life, because without that day, I wouldn't be here sitting across from you. I'll tell you the best day of my life within the last within the last year was climbing and getting to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro, because it was an 8-day hike up 19,000 feet with African people, with porters and everything that supported us along the way. And my friend had previously passed away a couple months before, and he had just climbed Kilimanjaro, so I was doing it in his honor. And I was just flooded with emotions when I got up to the top of there. I was crying, and I rarely cry, but crying's good. I need to cry more. But I was crying. I was just flooded with emotions, and it was just like this amazing feeling that I had.
Both of those sound like great days.
Day I was born, the most amazing day of my life. And I don't remember a second of it. It's great.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Michael. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in today, and our sponsor, Fractional CMO, for making the show possible. Remember something, everyone. When you see greatness in others, all you're seeing is the best version of yourself. If you are where I was in my life, completely broken, sick and tired of destroying yourself, and desperate to start living in your greatness, subscribe to this podcast or go to my YouTube channel. There's a ton of free videos of things I've learned to be able to get myself out of the pain I was in. There's a bunch of free information in there. You can go to Amazon and pick up my new book, Your Journey to Success, where I lay out that process as well. If you want to learn more about myself or my coaching, you can go to my website. It's www.coachkennyweiss.com. That's www.coachkennyweiss.com, and you spell my last name Weiss. Finally, if you want to reach me directly, my phone number is 480-729-3270. That's 480-729-3270. All right, everybody, have a great day. Remember, it's your turn to be great. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next week.
I can do anything. I can reach any goal today. I can do what I want. I can be what I want to be.
Coach on Fire Radio.